Today, we're diving into a really fascinating intersection. We are looking at the exact point where traditional holistic medicine collides with hard, modern exercise science. We're going to explore how ancient roots and botanicals are actually being validated by clinical trials to optimize athletic performance, strength, and stamina.
Picture your go-to pre-workout or muscle-building supplement. You're probably imagining a giant tub of neon-colored, lab-engineered powder that makes you feel totally jittery, right? Well, what if I told you that some of the most potent, scientifically validated compounds for increasing VO2 max, reducing exercise fatigue, and literally altering your muscle proteome don't come from a modern lab at all? They come from ancient medicinal roots and rhizomes. Today, we're going to challenge exactly how we look at fitness supplements.
Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. First, ancient wisdom, modern muscle. Second, adaptogens, ashwagandha and gokshura. Third, bala, nerves and joints. Fourth, shatavari for aging muscles. Fifth, rare Eastern superherbs. And finally, the final takeaway.
Chapter 1, Ancient Wisdom, Modern Muscle.
Long before we had double-blind, placebo-controlled trials, traditional Indian wrestlers, known as Pehlavans, were utilizing specific botanical roots to survive some truly grueling training sessions. In the traditional training grounds, or akharas, of Haryana and Punjab, these athletes would consume incredibly potent herbal concoctions alongside milk and ghee. And their goal wasn't just aesthetics. It was all about raw physical endurance, joint resilience, and deep tissue recovery. For centuries, this was just considered folk wisdom. But today, modern clinical science is stepping in, looking at these exact same practices under a microscope and finding incredible, measurable physiological validation.
Chapter 2, Adaptogens, Ashwagandha and Gokshura. To really grasp what these herbs do, let's break down the word adaptogen word to word. Adapt literally means to adjust to new conditions, and the suffix gen means a substance that produces or generates. So an adaptogen literally generates adaptation. Think about it. When you lift heavy weights or sprint, you're subjecting your body to massive physiological stress. Adaptogens essentially step in to buffer that stress response. They normalize your bodily processes and lower stress hormones, so your body can actually focus on recovery and muscle synthesis rather than just panicking from the trauma of the workout. These two adaptogens perfectly complement each other for an athlete. First, ashwagandha. The name translates to smell of a horse, which, hints at the crazy stamina it gives you, though thankfully not the body odor. Clinical data shows it directly lowers cortisol, which is that pesky stress hormone that actually eats away at muscle. Plus, it significantly boosts VO2 max and aerobic capacity. Then we have gokshura, also known as puncture vine. While ashwagandha manages the stress of the workout, gokshura directly targets your physical vigor. It enhances oxygen flow to the muscles, reduces exercise-related fatigue, and helps those muscles utilize protein more effectively for growth. Together, they form an absolute powerhouse engine for athletic recovery and output.
Chapter 3, Bala, Nerves and Joints.
In classical texts, the herb bala is famously described as a vata nashak. Let's translate that directly. Vata is the Ayurvedic principle of air and space, which effectively governs the nervous system, erratic movement, and physical debility. Nashak means destroyer or pacifier. So a vata nashak destroys nervous erraticism. Biomechanically, this translates to grounding your nerve impulses. When you train hard, your central nervous system takes an absolute beating, which leads to trembling limbs or joint stiffness. Bala contains mild alkaloids that tonify the nervous system, effectively calming those misfiring signals and clearing out inflammatory buildup in the muscle fibers. Now, this isn't just theory. When researchers looked at chronic fatigue sufferers who supplemented with bala combined with ashwagandha, they didn't just report feeling better. They documented a measurable 15% improvement in physical hand grip strength over just a 2-month period. Think about what a 15% increase in grip strength could do for your heavy deadlifts or your pull-ups. Additionally, in clinical settings, patients reported up to a 40% reduction in joint stiffness after just 3 weeks of targeted bacilla therapies. It physically strengthens the connection between your nerves and your muscle fibers. Chapter 4, Shatavari for aging muscles. To understand Shatavari's power, we have to understand phytoestrogens. Let's look at the word. Biologically speaking, phyto simply means plant. Estrogen is the primary female sex hormone. So these are plant-derived compounds that structurally mimic human estradiol. Why does this matter for muscle?
Well, women experience an accelerated loss of muscle strength following menopause due to estrogen deficiency. Estradiol actually improves myosin binding function, which is the literal mechanism of muscle contraction. By introducing phytoestrogens, shatavari offsets this hormonal decline, actively supporting muscle force production.
We can see the real-world impact of this in a recent double-blind trial published in Frontiers. They studied older women undergoing an 8-week resistance training program. The results were amazing. The women taking shatavari accumulated a significantly higher leg press training load compared to the placebo group. But it goes even deeper than that. Proteomic analysis revealed that shatavari actually altered their skeletal muscle proteome, specifically diminishing the expression of extracellular matrix proteins. The herb was literally shifting the molecular makeup of their muscle tissue to help them adapt better to the resistance training.
Okay, so perhaps the most mind-blowing data point from that trial is this number right here, 11.74%. In the older women supplementing with shatavari, the vastus lateralis half relaxation time, which basically means how quickly the muscle fiber resets after a maximum contraction, was shortened by nearly 12%. This indicates vastly improved muscle contractility and neuromuscular fatigue resistance. Their muscles were firing and recovering faster between heavy reps, all thanks to an ancient botanical.
Chapter 5. Rare Eastern Superherbs.
Here we are looking at two highly vulnerable species found deep in the understory forests of northeast India. On the left is the intricate, almost alien-looking rhizome of Paris polyphylla. And on the right, you can see the deep purple interior of Kaempferia parviflora. These are not crops you can just farm overnight in a greenhouse. These are shade-loving understory plants that take between 5 to 7 years to grow economically viable mature rhizomes. Because of their incredibly slow growth and a massive surge in pharmacological demand, these specific species are facing severe vulnerability and risk of extinction in the wild, which has prompted some very urgent conservation and tissue culture efforts.
Let's zoom in on Kaempferia parviflora, better known as black galangal. This stuff goes way beyond your basic health tonic. Clinical analysis of its methoxyflavones shows it actively induces skeletal muscle hypertrophy, meaning it triggers the biological pathways that make your muscle cells grow larger. Furthermore, a single oral dose has been shown to actually increase whole-body potential energy expenditure in humans. Add in documented neuroprotective properties that boost dopamine and serotonin in the brain, and you have a rare botanical that optimizes both the mind and the musculature for peak performance. Chapter 6. The final takeaway. So what is the big takeaway from our explainer today? It's how perfectly these traditional, ancient categorizations map onto incredibly specific modern fitness goals. If your goal is managing central nervous system burnout and pushing your aerobic limits, ashwagandha and gokshira provide the ultimate adaptogenic shield. If you're struggling with joint stiffness and nerve fatigue from heavy lifting, bala physically fortifies that mind-muscle connection. For older athletes fighting age-related muscle decline, shatavari literally rewires muscle contractility at a molecular level. And rare botanicals like black galangal, they are sitting right at the frontier of natural skeletal hypertrophy.
If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another science-backed fitness video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.